Welcome back to Practically Political. Happy summer once again. I'm Dave Spencer.
And I'm Carrie Sheffield. Great to have you all with us. Let's get right to it. Dave, what was your take on the conventions? I mean, you've had so many things on the DNC. What did you think of the main speech of Harris and Biden and Hillary? I mean, there's so many things that happened. You also had the scenes with the protests. I saw a post that someone from the Daily Wire had posted. She was covering the pro-Palestine protest, and there wasn't a single American flag in sight. It was all Palestinian flags. Do you think that hurt Harris at all?
Well, just to answer that specific question, then I'll get to the general text. I think things went very smoothly, and these worries that this is going to be another 1968 didn't materialize. I know Fox News, I always love to watch the Democratic convention on Fox and the Republican convention on MSNBC. So, of course, Fox had the double screen with a protest, hoping that they would break out, but it never really happened. So, overall, it was quite peaceful. I think it was a very good convention. As we talked about on the show before, Biden timed it perfectly. He left a week after or right after the Republican convention. So when you look at the two conventions, the Republican convention, it was very cocky. We've got this in the bag. Let's pick a vice presidential candidate, not to help us win, but to help carry the MAGA torch. Whereas Trump's speech, that 96-minute stem winder, I don't think was gauged to get a single vote that he already had. Whereas the Democratic convention, I think, went very smoothly. I think Harris's speech, mercifully only 40 minutes, was geared to get a lot of voters that she needs to get. Now, we'll talk more about whether she can get them and the challenges that we face. But overall, I think they did as about a good a job as they could have. I think things went pretty smoothly. What say you? And one final thing, sorry. What was really sad was you look at the Democratic convention and whatever you think of some of the old people that were there, like Clinton, Biden, Obama, at least there's a tradition. It made me so sad that today's Republican Party has become so toxic, and a party that used to be driven by principles we like now serves the principles of one man that doesn't have any. There were no George W. Bush, no Mitt Romney. It was very sad. Anyway, what are your thoughts?
Well, I give credit to the Chicago Police Department. I think they did a great job of keeping the area safe. So credit to them. And it was ironic because you had multiple barriers, and you had to show ID to get anywhere near the DNC perimeter. And a friend of mine, in fact, brought a man from Venezuela with him who was aware of what was happening and tried to bring him up and got it all on camera. He had no ID and he was an illegal migrant from Venezuela, and they wouldn't let him anywhere near what was going on. So it went viral because of the ironic nature of the fact that they're rejecting a migrant from Venezuela and forcing him to have an ID. And so it's rules for me but not for thee. And it reminded me of when you had the migrants brought to Martha's Vineyard, for example, and how all the rich liberals were just up in arms and kicking them out immediately, because it's all about not in my backyard. So there were certainly people in the conservative atmosphere who were, calling out some hypocrisy by the Democrats there in Chicago. And in terms of the speeches, to me, especially with Harris, it was like she was completely whitewashing her record and the things that she's said in the past. I mean, she's completely endorsed destroying private health insurance. She's endorsed that publicly. See, and then she says also that she supports the immigration bill, but everything she's done except that one act. So that's one hypothetical that didn't even make it through, and she didn't have the political abilities to get it through. So she failed in that. But then she's also had almost 4 years when it's been her signature issue. And to me, she doesn't care about the women, for example, her being sexually assaulted on the border. So it rings hollow to me when people say, oh, Carrie, you should support her because she'd be the first female president. I'm like, this is a woman who doesn't care about women being sexually assaulted at the border. She doesn't care about the Afghan women who are now under the Taliban rule. They just passed a law last week saying women can't even speak in public. They can't even show any skin in public. They can't even talk to or look at a male they're not related to. That is so anti-woman. So no, I'm not going to vote for Kamala because she's a woman. So there are a lot of theatrics and the entertainment. It was a vibes. That's what I kept saying. It was a vibes in convention, but people want more than vibes. They want substance.
Well, I certainly agree. And again, I think that yes, it was a vibes convention. And I have to say, though, I find it quite amusing where people are so up in arms that imagine this: someone tacks to the left during the primary, then they tack back to the center during the general election. Gee, no one's ever done that before. Come on, that's politics 101. So I don't think people are going to hold her. I don't hold her responsible that much for some of the stuff that she said back in 2019. Plus, when you're behind the desk or in the administration, then you see things differently. And a lot of people change their views once they get in there. But I do think that she is right now. It's been a joy campaign. It's been a vibes. So far, they're running a vibes election. So her main challenges are, I think, first of all, I would caution some of my Democratic friends about a post-convention bounce. I think she's already had the post-convention bounce. That was when she came in, right? Because over 70% of the people didn't want this election. So now they finally have an election, and at least one candidate who's not old and confused. And so, of course, they're going to be more excited. So I think that's the good news. I think she's already gotten the bounce. But turning a lot of these joy into votes, even the New York Times admits, is going to be a challenge. And the other thing you have to remember, the Electoral College slightly favors Republicans. So we take a look at history, right? Hillary won the popular vote by 2. She lost. Biden won it by 4, 4.5. And he won. And the irony is that the Electoral College vote was exactly switched or flipped, right? Hillary got 232 in 2016. Trump got 232 in 2020. So the Dems, and you can ask, smart, pragmatic Democratic strategists like James Carville, and they'll be the first to tell you, they have to win by 3 to win the election. So I still think it's a coin flip right now. And I think that Harris also needs to get out there. She needs to do an interview. This is going to be the most consequential debate. And I know Trump is talking about ducking it. I don't think he will, but if he does, I think Harris should just show up on her own, take questions from the media, take questions from the audience, but she also has to do a couple of one-on-one interviews. And this is a momentous first part of September, right? Because you have the debate on the 10th. Then the Fed's going to meet the next week, probably cut rates at least 25, maybe 50 basis points. Then you have Trump's sentencing on September 18th, right? It was postponed from July 11th. So we have a very interesting 3 weeks coming up. But I'll get to Trump in a minute. But what do you think of some of the stuff in terms of Harris's challenges and her pluses?